In this video, we'll be taking a look at all today's NCAAB matchups, and I'll break them all down with free winning picks so you can bet smarter and win bigger. But first, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you get our picks the second they drop, because when the lines move, the early birds cash in. And if you want the full winning sport picks experience, head over to wspicks.com and check out our VIP packages, or grab a free consultation with one of our professional sports consultants for the sharpest edge you'll find anywhere. That's where the real plays live. We are your bookmaker's worst nightmare. These are the games we're hammering, the ones the books can't afford you to bet. This is winning sport picks. The free picks are about to drop, and they're coming in hot. We start with Indiana versus Minnesota, with Indiana laying 10.5 and Minnesota catching 11. This is one of those classic tempo versus physicality matchups where Indiana wants to impose structure and pound out possessions, while Minnesota usually thrives when games get chaotic and long rebound heavy. When the line gets above the 2-possession window and starts creeping toward double digits, the public often leans too heavily toward the favorite because of brand familiarity, but market data consistently shows that these kinds of conference-style dogs hang around longer than expected. Minnesota tends to tighten games with effort plays and streaky scoring, so they have real value taking the points here. The total sits in that mid-140-something range, around 144.5 to 143.5, depending on where you shop, and that number tells you books expect steady pace, but not a runaway shootout. I like Minnesota plus the points, and I also lean under because both teams can slow down late when possessions get heavier. Next, we've got Louisville versus Arkansas, with Louisville laying 2.5 and Arkansas catching 3 on the other side of the market. This is one of those lines that feels like a coin flip matchup disguised as a favorite because Louisville tends to look stronger in controlled environments, but Arkansas brings the type of game that can flip momentum instantly. When spreads land between 2 and 3, sharp bettors look for which team dictates tempo more often, and that edge belongs to Louisville. They're comfortable grinding out low-efficiency possessions, and Arkansas has struggled to separate when they don't force turnovers. So I like Louisville minus 2.5, especially given how they manage late-game situations. With the total in the mid-160s, 164.5 to 165.5, the books are clearly projecting pace, but high totals don't always translate when physicality ramps up, and I lean under because both teams have extended stretches where scoring stalls without transition opportunities. Then we move to Clemson versus Alabama, with Clemson catching 12.5 and Alabama laying 11.5, depending on the shop. This is classic big number territory where the market often overestimates blowout potential. Alabama is the more explosive side, no question, but Clemson plays a brand of basketball that forces long sequences of half-court possessions, and double-digit underdogs who can control tempo usually outperform expectation. Even when Alabama wins comfortably, Clemson has a strong probability of staying inside this inflated window. So I like Clemson plus the 12.5. The total here sits in that 164 to 165 range, which suggests both teams should get scoring bursts. But the pace is heavily influenced by Clemson's ability to slow Alabama's early rhythm, and if that happens, we get less overall shooting volume than expected, giving me a lean toward the under. Now we go to Alcorn State versus Iowa State, with Alcorn catching a massive 41.5 and Iowa State laying 40.5. Whenever you see a spread above 40, it's not about which team is better, it's about motivation, bench rotations, and pace in the second half. Big favorites rarely cover these monster numbers unless everything goes perfectly. Fast tempo, high shooting percentage, and deep bench buy-in. Iowa State is clearly dominant, but they don't need style points here, and these huge spreads almost always leave the back door wide open in the final 10 minutes. Alcorn State plus 41.5 is the right side, strictly based on probability. Total is around 150 to 151, and blowout games often stall late with reserves playing slower and taking the air out of the game. That pushes me toward the under as the higher value angle. Next is California Baptist versus BYU, with Cal Baptist catching 20.5 and BYU laying 20. This is another spot where the favorite is the better team, but the number creates value on the dog. BYU can score and stretch the floor, but Cal Baptist plays with enough physicality and half-court patience to avoid early collapses. Anytime you get totals around 149 to 150 paired with a spread this large, the expectation is moderate scoring but not enough possessions to create a 30-point runaway. So the points become the smarter long-term play. I like California Baptist plus the 20.5. As for the total, I lean over 149.5 because both teams can shoot efficiently when they get comfortable, but the stronger edge remains on the side. Then we've got SMU versus Vanderbilt, with SMU catching 10.5 and Vanderbilt laying 9.5. This line sits at that tricky range where the books expect a comfortable win from Vandy, but not necessarily a blowout. SMU tends to play close even when they lose because their style forces drawn-out offensive sequences. Vanderbilt has higher efficiency and cleaner execution, but SMU's ability to control certain possessions creates value when you give them double digits. I like SMU plus 10.5. The total around 167.5 suggests full pace, but both teams can go cold for stretches, especially when forced into late clock situations. That gives me an underlean, but the side is where the stronger opportunity is. And finally, we close with NC State versus Auburn, with NC State catching 6.5 and Auburn laying 5.5. This is one of the tighter competitive matchups on the board, and the spread sits in a spot where sharp bettors often gravitate toward the dog because of volatility. When the line lives between 5 and 7, underdogs cover at a higher clip due to how endgame fouling and late scoring swings impact outcomes. NC State has enough shot-making ability to stay inside this number. I like NC State plus the 6.5. The total 165.5 to 167.5 projects serious pace, but this number feels slightly inflated given both teams' mid-game lulls. That gives me another underlean to close out the card. Now listen to me, those are the free picks, but the one game I am unloading on tonight, the game that's going to crush your bookie's soul, that's the VIP play of the day at WSPicks.com. This is the nuke, the hammer, the max bet, the one play I've circled, the game that will bury your bookmaker 6 feet under. When it hits, and it will, your bookie is going to need a doctor, a lawyer, and maybe even a priest. If you want to ride with me on the biggest bet of the day, get to WSPicks.com right now. For the recap, we're rolling with Minnesota plus 11 and the under, Louisville minus 2.5 and the under, Clemson plus 12.5 and the under, Alcorn State plus 41.5 and the under, California Baptist plus 20.5 with a lean to the over, SMU plus 10.5 with an under lean, and NC State plus 6.5 with another under lean to finish the slate. This is Winning Sport Picks, where we don't just bet, we bury bookmakers. Smash that subscribe button, drop your favorite plays in the comments, and hammer that like button like you're hammering your bookie into the dirt. We're cashing, we're dominating, and tonight we're dancing on the grave of your bookmaker. Let's go!